Today, in New York State Supreme Court, Judge Carro did exactly what I and other legal experts said he was going to do months ago. He dismissed the terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione. I'm Eliza Orlins, career public defender for 15 years in Manhattan. And this dismissal shows something bigger, how prosecutors routinely will overcharge in order to scare people accused of crimes into taking pleas and secure harsher sentences, even when the evidence doesn't support the most serious allegations. So this morning, Judge Gregory Carro dismissed 2 terrorism-related murder counts: first-degree murder in furtherance of terrorism and second-degree murder as a crime of terrorism. Those charges would have carried a mandatory life without parole sentence. Why were they dropped? Well, because New York's terrorism statute requires proof that someone intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or influence government policy, and the judge found no evidence of that. In his decision, Judge Carro wrote, "While the defendant was clearly expressing an animus towards UHC and the healthcare industry generally, it does not follow that his goal was to intimidate and coerce a civilian population." And indeed, there was no evidence presented of such a goal. This is a classic prosecutorial strategy. Pile on the most serious charges, even if they're legally shaky. Use fear to force a plea. Most people, terrified of a sentence of life without parole, will take a deal and then fall back on lesser charges. So even if the biggest charges collapse, prosecutors will still have something to work with. And that is exactly what happened here. The terrorism charges are gone, but Luigi Mangione still faces second-degree murder and weapons charges. And his case is not unique. This happens every single day. A mere drug possession case will be filed as trafficking of narcotics, fistfights will become attempted murder, petty theft will be recast as organized crime. The aim is always the same: maximize leverage and secure harsher outcomes. For defendants, the pressure is enormous. When you're staring down life without parole, suddenly a plea to 20 years or 25 years looks like mercy. But Luigi's attorneys did an excellent job of focusing on the law, saying, show us the evidence of intent to terrorize a population. Prosecutors couldn't do that. They had ideology, they had anger, they had a targeted killing, but no terrorism under New York's statute. Even federal prosecutors who could have brought terrorism charges under federal law chose not to. This case is a reminder. Initial charges often reflect strategy, not evidence. Prosecutors know there's almost no downside to overcharging. Either they scare someone into pleading guilty or they fall back on lesser counts that they can prove later on. But for defendants, it means something else. Just because you're charged with something, but for the rest of us, it means something else. Never assume that just because someone is charged with something, that the prosecution can prove it. Sometimes, as we saw today, it collapses as soon as the judge applies the law. Now for Luigi, his case is not over. He still faces extremely serious charges, but today's ruling shows the importance of pushing back on prosecutorial overreach. When courts demand actual evidence of intent, the scariest charges can crumble fast. Make sure you're following me for more, and please feel free to leave questions in the comments if you have them.